Minute here, we're going to be joined by former Notre Dame tight end in the NFL, Derek Brown. We'll be talking to him about his time at Notre Dame, his time in the NFL, and what he's up to now. For those of you guys that maybe have been living under a rock the last couple hours, Brian Driscoll of Irish Breakdown just announced and posted, as well as her loyal sons also just posted that Notre Dame has pretty much officially made it official that there will be no fans this year at games. We all kind of suspected that. It looks like it's going to be faculty, students, and media. In the stands, I'm assuming they're going to just have faculty and students. A couple people have already asked us questions. From what we understand, they're not going to be allowed to resell the tickets. So if you were thinking, hey, let me go hit up this professor for maybe a ticket, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. They aren't going to have the options of resell. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens officially. We also did learn that tailgating will also not be allowed. They're encouraging people to get to the game, park, and then go directly into the stadium. So huge bummer for a lot of people. I know some people had some major trips planned. I know some people were supposed to be in Ireland as of yesterday. So clearly not how we wanted this to go down. But hey, it looks like we are going to be getting a season, and we should be grateful for that. So I personally am. Are you still excited, Nate?
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. It's obviously going to be different, but I mean, it's kind of cool seeing like other sports doing this and seeing like kind of the difference between no fans and having fans.
Yeah, and I think the NBA and MLB and the NHL, soccer, Major League Soccer have done a good job with creating a little bit of an environment, so it still seems like you have some noise and things like that. It's going to be different because there's just a certain sound, especially with Notre Dame games, where you get the crowd fired up. You get people doing the chants, doing the different motions, things like that. So obviously that's going to suck not having that, and I know the players will probably have a little bit of an issue in terms of feeding off the fan excitement, things of that nature. But again, we're getting a season. We'll be happy for that. Additionally, let's see. The interesting thing is going to be to see what happens with the road games, and we'll go over the schedule here in a minute. We actually have an early prediction thing that Nate and I are going to do on what we think the record will be for the 2020 season. And then next weekend when we come back, we're going to be doing a pretty deep dive into the season, go down each game, talk about some game breakers that are there for the other teams, talk about some things that'll have to happen, just kind of break down each game. We'll probably ask Brian Driscoll to join us for that, for some commentary, and go from there. So with that, we're going to try to get Derek Brown on the phone here, have a conversation with him.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good afternoon, Derek. It's Jason and Nate, the Dos Leprechauns.
Oh, hey, how are you?
We're good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well.
So we have you live here on Facebook, and we appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time.
Sure.
We'll try to not take too much of your time and just talk a little bit about your career and anything you have going on now. So first of all, did you hear the news that just came out that it looks like Notre Dame will not be allowing any fans in the stands this season?
Mm-hmm.
So what's your take on that? I mean, how, as a former player, how much different would that have been in your career at Notre Dame?
It's going to be huge. There is no such thing really as home field advantage. I mean, yes, the traveling team does have the travel, but with no fans, it's a scrimmage.
Right.
But that is the days that we live in right now. So they're going to do it, and quite frankly, we all know they got to pay bills. So this is the next best thing.
Yeah, we learned that it look like it's gonna be faculty, students, and media only. So I'm guessing it's gonna be in the neighborhood of 2,500 to 3,000, somewhere in that range. So about 90,000 short of where they're usually at. Totally different experience, but we're getting football.
My guess is it's probably gonna go the same route that the NBA did, right? So
Sure.
The first couple of games, we were, it looked kind of weird. I was like, man, this is just weird. But by the second, third week, it looked normal. Like it was fine.
Sure.
The competition was just as hard. It looked good, and it was used to it. So I think football's going to be the same way.
Good, very good point. So Derek, you're a former USA Today high school All-American. You're from Merritt Island, Florida. National champion in 1988. First round draft pick, 14th overall. I screwed that up on the post yesterday. I apologize.
No worries.
14th pick overall in the 1992 NFL draft. He played for the Giants, Jaguars, Raiders, and Arizona Cardinals. Finished his career with 43 career receptions and a touchdown in the NFL. So Let's go back to your career at ND. What were some of the other schools that recruited you, and why did you end up choosing Notre Dame?
Well, pretty much it was weird. So ended up being the number one tight end in the country. I was like the number 3 football player behind, uh, uh, oh my God, what's his name? Tom Ernovich and Brett Johnson, 2 quarterbacks. And really for me, it boiled down to my last 3 schools, where my 5 trips were UCLA, Notre Dame, Miami, University of Virginia, and Florida. And it came down between Florida, Notre Dame, and Miami, then eventually Notre Dame, and Miami, and ended up going to Notre Dame.
So that's kind of an interesting that it came down to Florida. I'm sorry, Miami and Notre Dame when in 1988. Obviously Catholics versus convicts. So how much different do you think it would have been being on the other sidelines for that game than opposed to being at Notre Dame?
Well, you see, I like to think whatever team I was on, we would have won. So that's what I think. But no, I mean, it was definitely it was special because in that game there was 4 guys from my high school playing in that game.
Wow.
So we had 3 guys from Miami: Bubba McDowell, Hurley Brown, Daryl Spencer, and then myself playing in that historic game. And of course, I don't want to be that guy, back in my day. But, I think what football is missing, it's so corporate now and so, packaged and nice. You don't have those protagonists and antagonists, good versus evil or, supposedly like that. The rivalries, I don't think, are as strong or as much of a feud, as they were back then. But, of course, that's just me being the old fart in the room, saying that. But it was definitely special being part of something what I would consider one of the best games of the century, and to be not only be a part of it, but be a contributing factor in that game.
Yeah, I think you hit a great point there that you don't see some of the pure, just real hatred amongst teams anymore. I mean, you're obviously going to have a rivalry, Notre Dame SC, Notre Dame Michigan, all those kinds of things. But Notre Dame Navy. I mean, for me, it's always difficult to really root against Navy. I mean, those guys and gals are going to be serving us in the future. So it's a lot different now, and I think that that's such a huge point that you just don't see that. That game might have been the last really of the true hated games. I mean, when we went to Miami a few years ago for that game, it was obviously a heated environment, but nothing like the Notre Dame Miami game in '88.
Kids today have no idea what it was like. And to tell you the truth, it wasn't so much the players; it was the schools. When I talk to, I live in the Albany, New York area, and for years there, I don't know if you know, but Bernard Tiger Clark was an assistant coach here at University of Albany. And so we got together a couple times when we found out we both lived here. Tiger played middle linebacker for the U, and he was I was his recruit. He was pissed I didn't end up going there. And but it was great to get together. We're doing on ESPN radio locally and talking about that game. And what I think the big difference is, the whole corporate thing. I think back then, you went to a school because you wanted to go to the school. You didn't go there for, okay, I'm coming here because I want to get this, the shortest trip to the NFL.
Right.
That really wasn't the deciding factor for us. The deciding factor was, I'm going to bleed blue and gold, and anybody who I play is the enemy. I mean, not that we hated them, but it was just that you're competitive, and I guess you say the love for that school.
Mm-hmm.
Your team, I should say.
Was there something in particular that maybe your recruiter from Notre Dame, whoever that might have been, said that really just put you over the edge that, hey, man, I need to be in South Bend?
It wasn't something they said. You know what it was? It was an intangible thing. It was just a gut feeling that I had. And I remember, Hurley Brown was asking, why the hell did you go up there and go to Notre Dame? You need to be in line with us. I was like, Hurley, I hear you, but when you come to play us, it's something intangible. I can't describe it. It's like when you get there, I think you'll see and feel what I felt.
Absolutely.
And that's what drew me there.
Yeah, no doubt. It's that magic of Notre Dame that I always talk about. Yeah,
it was the magic. It really wasn't anything anybody said. Now, mind you, I didn't know I didn't know diddly squat about Notre Dame. Didn't really. I had just started playing football anyways in 9th grade, and played whatever sport was in season, and I didn't really there was no history there. If anything, I was more of a Miami fan than I was a Notre Dame fan, obviously, because it was Miami being 3 hours away from my
Sure.
home, and a lot of my friends from high school went down there and played down there. So, for me, and also during that time, for a top recruit to leave the state of Florida,
Sure.
I'm not gonna say it was unheard of, but it didn't happen often.
It's actually amazing to me. That's a good point too. It's actually amazing to me when I see high school athletes decide to go from, let's say, we're here in California, but the Floridas of the world, the Californias of the world, to go to South Bend and in November, December, you're probably playing in the snow or freezing cold temperatures. To go away from the SCs, the UCLA's, Miami, the Florida States,
Right.
it just goes to show you how truly special of a place Notre Dame is, and that's just so cool to hear you actually say that too. That's awesome.
Sure, no, absolutely.
So do you have any special Coach Holtz memories, and can you do it like in his voice or an impression of him?
Oh man, I tell you, obviously the famous speech when he gave when he got in that tunnel fight with Miami, and he comes up there, see Jimmy Johnson's dash for me.
That's pretty
And,
good.
we were all hyped up and everything for it, but we're like, deep down, you're like, well, there's no way that man can beat Jimmy Johnson.
Right.
In a fight,
I don't know.
But at that time, it didn't really matter. But what can what I can take away is it was just a special time there, right? Because I say it all the time. So when you have a great team and like a great environment, our coaches just had to coach. They didn't have to police the team, because it was at a point where we policed the team, where if you weren't playing up to par and doing the right things, we took care of that. Coaches didn't have to take care of that. Us as players and leaders on the team took care of it. We took care of it in-house in the team. And so when your coaches are just coaching, that makes their job so much easier.
Sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It helps when you have Jerome Bettis sitting the bench behind Ricky Waters and Rock Additional, who are splitting time at tailback.
Right.
So, it is easy when you have that, and Oliver Gibson and Brian Young and Junior Bryant all sit in the bench because you have Jeff Alm, Bob Dahl, and Zorich, starting in front of them. So, I say it all the time. Our scout team was probably the number two, the second best team in the country during those times.
That's unreal. Well, yeah, you mentioned some of those names. I mean, Jerome Bettis sitting on the bench, and what was it like getting to play with somebody like Jerome Bettis? He was such a competitor, such a phenomenal athlete. For a bigger guy, what kind of person was he in terms of a teammate, in terms of a fellow student, things like that?
He was a great guy, great kid. I mean, he was 2 years younger than me, but I mean, obviously we with his work ethic and everything, we took him in. We took in pretty much everybody that was on the team. To be truthful, we really didn't realize just how great we were until years after we left. Seeing how, when you look back at the stats and stuff like that, and how no one really come close. I mean, crying out loud, it's been almost 35 years since they won a national championship, and that was us. What team we beat was 4 out of the top 7 teams in the country.
Right.
Never been done.
Right.
Everybody has these cupcake schedules. Don't want to talk bad about Alabama, but we didn't play cupcake teams. I mean, people can say like, oh, well, you still play the Air Force of the world. Well, guess what? When we played, Air Force was the best team in the WAC.
Right.
Yeah, we beat them. USC, best team in the Pac-10 during that time. We beat them. Michigan, Big Ten, we beat them. So, Miami, independent, we beat them. And that's, to me, that's kind of special.
Yeah, no doubt. And that whole team was special. The whole '88 season was just like I remember it like yesterday. It was just a magical time. So just awesome to talk to somebody who was a part of it again. Moving on to your NFL career. So, obviously I know you had an injury that you sustained in the preseason in 1995. What do you think about the NFL not playing a preseason? Do you think that's something that should be the norm now, or do you think they should maybe play 1 or 2 games? What's your take on that?
Well, you know what, though? To tell you the truth, it really doesn't even matter. I think personally, probably it's good that they don't play preseason games, because and people don't realize is in the preseason games they don't get paid anything. They get paid like $600-700 a week, whatever. And, they're not making their salaries, but they're taking those hits. And also, too, to me, what it boils down to is more, the practices anyways, because it's quite honestly now, you have 20 days of training camp. In half of those, you can actually go full pads for like one practice. So, I'm not saying, it was tough, and unfortunately, football is one of those sports where, regardless, like, if you think about it, even you go back the last couple of years, it takes probably, 2-3 weeks into the season before you see teams actually, playing normal, and you don't see all those freak acts, not accidents, but injuries.
Sure.
Because football, the only way to really get good at football is to play football.
Right.
You can't, there's no way to imitate, hits. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm that old guy. Back in my day, even during the season, we would do 3 or 4 plays of goal line live.
Wow.
Middle of the season. Because you got to get the time. It's that's just how it was.
And with the training camps being a lot shorter this year, not having preseason games, do you anticipate the product on the field this year to be a lot less? Do you think it'll be the same, better? What do you think?
Oh, I'm definitely going to think it's going to be less.
Okay.
Because of the nature of the sport. Because the sport is, it's too physical.
Sure.
It's just too physical. And the only way to be battle tested is to actually be in battle.
You had your best statistical season after your injury. What do you think? What could you attribute that to?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Statistically, you had your best NFL season the year after your serious injury. What do you attribute that to?
Just, I guess I can say that warrior mentality. There was times there where I was thinking like, oh, holy crap, this could be over. And quite honestly, I had a year to heal and to work out. So I didn't, it was like a break in, kind of like right now with these guys not being able to do what they've normally done in the past, and some guys opting out. I feel some guys would come back better than before.
Okay, that's fair. All right, Derek. Well, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what you have going on now. We like to give our guests the opportunity to talk about anything they have, plug anything they have. I do want to ask you one question. Have you connected with Clint Johnson about his golf tournament he has coming up?
Yes, I have. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make the golf tournament, but yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, this past year, I've been in touch with Clint quite often.
Good deal. We're trying to do everything we can to help him with that because we absolutely believe in saving youth sports. We actually have our own initiative out here it's called Let Them Play, where we're trying to get high school and youth kids back on the fields and courts to be able to have that outlet again sooner than later.
Sure, absolutely.
So with that, please tell us what you have going on, where people can stay in contact with you, all those types of things.
Sure. Well, my social media is all Derek Brown 86. Instagram and Twitter, that's usually the ones I'm at. I do have a Facebook page, but I really don't do anything with that. And that's it. So right now, actually, I work for a energy supply company, actually a brokerage side. And then also, too, kind of shifting over to the restaurant business with overseeing about, right now, currently 6 Jersey Mike's with, 8 Jersey Mike's with another 6 supposedly supposed to open between now and the end of the year, and another 10 the following year. So
very cool.
Try to stay busy.
What area of the country are those in mostly?
The Jersey Mike's here in New York State.
New York State. Okay, cool. Very cool. Have you guys seen an increase in business, decrease, kind of steady with all this going on?
Actually, with our stores here in New York, it's actually been pretty good because it's quick service restaurant, right? So
right.
Not your normal, not a sit down restaurant, anything like that.
Sure.
And, God bless. It's been very good for us.
That's awesome. During this time, we really try to do all we can to support local businesses and small businesses especially. And I love to hear.
Absolutely.
I love to hear when businesses are still thriving and doing a great job, because we've seen especially in California, we've seen so many businesses close and just have really big issues. So I love to hear that.
Well, I think a lot of it too has to do with the operator's attitude, my attitude, and the gentleman that I work with. There's opportunity in chaos, and it's go time now.
Yeah.
If you really sit down and focus and just do it. Bottom line is just do it. You don't necessarily have to have a plan. Figure it out as you go. Just do it, because now is the time. Now is the time. It's
been pretty amazing to see how innovative some restaurants have gotten with their service delivery. So
Yeah.
You know, if we're ever out on the New York side, we'll have to hit you up to get a sub and a tub out at Jersey Mike's.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, my man.
So, all right, Derek. Hey, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it. It was a great interview. We'll hope to stay in contact with you and catch up with you soon.
Yes. No, please do. Thank you, guys, man. It's been a pleasure.
All right, go Irish.
You got it. Thanks, man.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that was our interview with Derek Brown, former tight end for the Irish that played in the '88 season. You heard him talk about some of the talent that '88 team had on the bench. I mean, you had Jerome Bettis, a NFL Hall of Famer, a legendary football player on the bench, saying that their scout team was probably the second best team that they played all year, and that's saying that they played the likes of the Miamis, the USCs, the Michigans, you know, all those teams. So really cool interview to get some of those insights. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Wanted to talk about a couple other things. I mentioned to Derek the golf tournament. I'm not going to let anybody forget about that. We've got to make this happen and make it happen successfully for Clint Johnson, the guy we had on last week from Notre Dame. He's running a golf tournament on September 22nd. It's going to be in Chicago. If you'd like info on that, if you're in the Chicago area, highly encourage you to try to participate. There's going to be all kinds of Notre Dame and NFL legends and alumni there. They're going to have a great time. You're going to be able to go out and golf with some of those guys and just really have a great time and really support a great cause. It's Save Youth Sports, and that's due to the fact that a lot of inner city youth sports programs, whether it be municipalities or private rec leagues, are really, they're fading out because of the whole COVID and because, quite frankly, kids can't afford to play anymore, even before COVID or after COVID. So we're going to really try to help him push that. We're going to try really hard to make it out there. We'll kind of see what happens. But either way, we're going to be supporting them all throughout the way. Additionally, we're working on an event on September 20th called Let Them Play, where we're going to be really encouraging the state leaders here in California, local leaders and county leaders to let these guys get back on the field when they said we could, and that's in December. So Nate's football season has been pushed to December, but they're out there working right now, so they're having a good time. How's it going? Why don't you fill them in, Nate? How things been going?
I mean, it's been good. I mean, we don't have a coach right now, so that kind of sucks.
We're working on that. Working on that.
But other than that, it's been cool to see my friends play football. Well, I mean, condition again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like football season.
So as I mentioned earlier, we're 13 days away from Notre Dame football. You can see the countdown clock above us. The 13 days till Duke. We don't know the exact time, so we guessed and said it'll be 12:30 Pacific, like usual, 3:30 Eastern for those of you guys on the Eastern Standard Time. So 13 days is brought to you. Stay tuned for the countdown. We'll be doing that still today, later on. Paul Moala, who is a linebacker for the Irish, was kind of cool last year. We got an opportunity to meet his family right after the Stanford game while we were enjoying a burger in and out. Super great family, huge family came out. Really nice people. They asked what Dos Leprechauns was, so hopefully they're watching right now. Also, Lawrence Keys, who's going to have a big is going to need to have a big season at wide receiver with Kevin Austin being out for a few games. And then in years past, from number 13, we had safety Tom Carter. Burt Berry, of course, wore number 13, went on to have an amazing NFL career. Pat Eilers wore number 13 for that 88 team. And then Danny Spahn, who, as you probably remember, had his career cut short due to an injury, but was a real fan favorite for the Irish back in the late 2010s. Nate, let's talk a little bit about the schedule. Just announced last week. We were super excited to bring this news to you guys. South Florida back on the schedule, so they're going to fill that void on September 19th. It looked like it might have been a bye because I know there was some scheduling issues with Navy, so we couldn't get that game in there. BYU was another option, but I think there was some travel issues there. So South Florida is the game to fill that 19th. They're coming into South Bend for that game. I, for one, am very excited, and I know that South Florida team probably doesn't even have any assistant coaches or training staff on it from the game, and well, we won't even talk about that game, but when there was 18 different, thunder delays and things like that, but lost to South Florida. Skip Holtz, of all people, led South Florida team, and we need some revenge for that game. I tweeted out earlier that I really hope that Brian Kelly and staff run up the score on that game. I want some revenge, and I think this team, especially the offense, has a chance to really have the ability to run the score up on people.
Yeah.
That said, if we start running up the score on people, I'm really hoping that they'll pull Ian out and give Clark some opportunities, maybe even Drew Pine some opportunities, because we're going to need to see. I mean, we know what we're dealing with this year. If you have an Ian Book go down and, God forbid, get COVID or something like that, you're going to need to have the next man up ready to go. Brandon Clark, Drew Pine, he's going to need to be ready to go at a moment's notice. So although I want the score to be run up, I also want to make sure that we're safe and making sure that these guys are able to finish off the season. Any questions?
Um,
Let's see. Let's say we're going to get back into the schedule here. We got Sean Hagan on, Jason Lynch. We've got, let's see. I know I saw Melissa Kovac, Matthew Rose. Justin Knox is on here too. R.I.P. Rodney Culver. Absolutely. That was Rodney Culver had died in a plane crash. That was a really terrible, terrible, terrible tragedy. Moving on to the rest of the schedule. So we're 13 days away from Duke. Then we got South Florida coming into town. Then the Irish are traveling on September 26th to Wake Forest. October 3rd, we have a bye week. October 10th, Florida State at home. October 17th, Louisville at home. Then we're at Pitt, at Georgia Tech, and then the big dog, November 7th. Clemson comes to South Bend, and they're owed a big one. I mean, they beat us in the Hurricane a few years ago, and then, of course, what happened in the 2018 playoff game, which sucked. Then we finish the season with at Boston College, at North Carolina, and then how weird is it going to be to have a Notre Dame game the first weekend in December?
yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be really, really cold.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I don't think Notre Dame said explicitly there will be no fans throughout the entire season. So as COVID starts to go even further downhill, as we continue to beat the crap out of this shitty disease, explicit language warning, I think we'll start to be able to see some of these things open up, and hopefully they'll have fans, or hopefully some of these other teams will have allow fans at their games. I know we have a lot of fans and friends in the Pittsburgh area, Pennsylvania area, and they haven't officially ruled out fans. So maybe there's a chance that some of these games will allow fans. I mean, I know Georgia's pretty liberal in terms of, conservative, but they're liberal in terms of what they're allowing and things of that nature. So maybe fans are at that one. So whatever it may be, I hope you get to go to a game. If you have something planned or if it's near you, that would be really great for you guys. So with that schedule, it's an ACC schedule, obviously. It's for hopefully one and done ACC schedule for us. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this schedule, how we match up with these teams. We're going to get into a little bit more of a deep dive next weekend. We won't have a guest next weekend. We're going to be doing strictly kind of a schedule analysis, talk about some of the players we look to step up and have big games, things like that, kind of our season preview. Got pushed back. We had one planned originally, and then obviously things changed. So we're going to kind of look at it from this slate here. So with that said, I've been looking at this, and there's a few games on here, and we're going to talk more about it. There's a few games on here that I'm not going to lie are what I consider to be trap games with some game breakers that can really pose some problems. The Louisville game, in my opinion, is probably the second toughest game besides Clemson. Pitt is definitely not going to be a walk in the park. The North Carolina game won't be easy, and then obviously Clemson. I think we beat Duke, South Florida, and Wake Forest by double digits easily. I don't think none of those first three games should be close. I'm really hoping that some of the younger guys get some opportunities in those three games. Then we have a nicely placed bye because we can get ready for the tougher slates. We got Florida State, who is still down, but it's still Florida State. They're going to have some of those athletes. Louisville is going to be a very tough game. Pitt's going to be a very tough game. I think Georgia Tech we blow out. Clemson, we all know about Clemson. Their defense took a lot of hits, so if we can expose them somewhere, I think our offense will be clicking by then, and maybe we win a shootout. But at Boston College is never an easy one. At North Carolina, with Coach Mack Brown, has really come back. They've recruited well. They've got a good quarterback. That's going to be a tough game also. So with all that said, my very early, before getting too deep into it, prediction, I'm going to say we go 11-1, and our one loss is not to who you think it is. I think we lose to either Boston College, Pitt, or Louisville. I don't think we lose to Clemson in the regular season. We'll see what happens in the ACC championship game. If it shakes up that way, we'll see if we get a rematch and how that might go. But I just have this feeling that that's finally going to be the time that Coach Kelly, Coach Reese, Coach Lee are able to put it all together. Ian's going to lead us to a great season, and we find a way to win.
Yeah, I think we'll go 11-1. Like you said, there's a lot of trap games in there. Obviously, the first game against Duke is going to be tough. Notre Dame's probably going to come out flat, honestly, because that's what they always do. That's how it was against Louisville. So hopefully, I still think we'll be able to beat Duke, but I think the loss comes to Clemson in a lot closer game this year. And then if we play them in the ACC championship, then I think we'll beat them the second time around.
Yeah, it's an interesting schedule. I mean, it's different. We don't have some of the traditional rivalries, which will really it's really sad not to have the SC game on there, because we of course would be at the SC game because it was the last game of the season in LA at the Coliseum. We don't have Navy, which for me is a huge one. Central Michigan, nobody really cared about that one anyways. So it's a little bit of a downer, but we're gonna get Notre Dame football, guys. I know there was a lot of doubt, but it does look like we're full speed ahead at this point. And I think everybody needs to take, and it's funny we already have to say this, but I think everybody needs to take a chill pill because COVID's here, guys, and it's not going anywhere. So there's probably going to be a player, 2, 3, 4, maybe even more, that probably get this thing at some point during the season. And that's probably going to happen all across the college football landscape. And I think that we have to find a way to get through that without shutting everything down. I think it's going to be a situation like similar to the MLB, where I think we're learning more about it now that these young athletes are able to work through it, contact trace those people, make sure they're staying away from others, and then other people are going to have to step up. The phrase "next man in" will never apply more than it ever has in this season, and that's a guarantee. So it's going to be very interesting, and I think that's one of the things we'll talk about next week in our deep dive is who are some of the backup players that are going to need to be ready to go immediately, not just your defensive players that you rotate in on the D-line or at safety or in nickel situations, things like that, but who are the guys that are going to need to step up right away and be ready to play really week 1 if something were to happen, God forbid. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and let you also know about our Nate dropped in the comment section below our gear, our page with all of our shirts. We have the Kilted Leprechaun shirts, the Dos Leprechauns Media shirts. We're gonna add some new ones. I've got something we're working on with the Chase Claypool NFL type shirt that we're gonna put out that I think you guys will like. And we're gonna try to get shirts going as regularly as possible to really try to get that merchandise in going. The final thing I wanted to mention is one of the things we've talked about doing is kind of a tailgating somewhere. We're not sure if it's going to be here in California, if it's going to be in a state that's a little bit more, a lot more open. But we want to do some sort of tailgate since we know that, we're not going to be able to tailgate together at a Notre Dame game. So with that in mind, look out for that. We're going to try to get out to somebody, maybe one of the clubs, to host a live tailgate, have some food, have some drinks, have some fun. Maybe we'll get some special guests that come by. So with that said, we're going to sign off. Nate, you got anything before we go?
No.
Okay. Go Irish, everybody.